Hello everybody. Next up we face Leicester City at the Olympic. Kick-offs at 8 p.m. on Thursday, the midweek date coming as a consequence of yet more tinkering with the FA Cup. Back in the day they used to keep the third and fourth round dates clear of league fixtures and published a full set of fixtures for subsequent rounds, with clubs postponing as and where necessary. Then they started sticking one round aside to happen in midweek. That's been scrapped, but all top-flight league matches are still scrapped for this weekend. Hence the full fixture list over the course of this midweek. TNT are the broadcasters if you're watching on the box. And the good news just in is that the planned strike on the Elizabeth line has been called off for Thursday night. So Leicester then, well, they have to be favourites for the drop really. Since they somewhat fortuitously beat us in the first game of the Van Nistelrooy tenure back in December, their results have gone drawn, lost, won, lost, and lost. That one win, rather amusingly, came at Tottenham, where second-half goals from Vardy and Elkanous were enough to overturn a 1-0 half-time deficit. That winner by Elkanous on the 26th of January was actually the last goal that they scored, and they've lost their subsequent three matches 4-0 at Everton, 2-0 at home to Arsenal and 4-0 at home to Brentford last Friday. This has left them in 19th place with 17 points from the 26 games they've played so far. Now, whilst that's 8 points above Southampton, let's face it, they're just about down anyway. More importantly, Leicester are level on points with Ipswich, having a 4-goal deficit on the Tractor Boys. Both clubs have a 5-point gap before they encounter Wolverhampton Wanderers, whose win at Bournemouth on Saturday was only slightly dampened by their midweek home defeat to Fulham, and was a big step towards their own safety. For what it's worth, above Wolves there's a further 8-point gap to our good selves. The butt of supporters' frustration at the current state of affairs seems to have been aimed at Director of Football John Rudkin, the general opinion being that Van Nistelrooy can only play the cards dealt to him by the owners, and by Rudkin, who is seen as the owner's main man. There has been dissatisfaction with the quality of player that has arrived under Rudkin's stewardship, one supporter suggesting that the signing of Odsonne Edouard ought to have merited a dismissal all on its own. Interestingly, Rudkin is listed as also holding the same position with Belgian outfit Leuven, who are owned by the same people behind Leicester. This has split the support. Some are saying that he ought to be concentrating totally on Leicester, whilst others are wishing that he'd simply hop it over to Belgium and stay there. Given the position that they're in, one might have expected them to spend a few bob during the window. However, and possibly as a result of their close shave with the points deduction after sailing close to the wind with the spending rules, Daisy tells me that the only player brought in over the winter was the splendidly named Wayo Koulibaly. Koulibaly arrived for what is these days nearly a nominal fee of £3 million, the player's contract expiring at the end of the season. He was part of the Parma squad that got promotion to Serie A last season. Born in France of Malian descent, he is yet to be capped by either of the countries for which he's qualified to play. Let's move on, shall we, to the wild and wacky world of association football. And as if we needed any other excuses to point derisively at Spurs and laugh, their media people have decided that Manchester United are in danger of taking over as the Premier League's biggest laughingstock. Clearly this was a state of affairs that could not be allowed to continue under any circumstances. But what to do? Well, you got to hand it to them, they did get very creative, issuing a press release castigating the media for calling them Tottenham instead of Tottenham Hotspur and instead of Spurs. That's right up there with Donald Trump trying to tell the world that the Gulf of Mexico, well, isn't. Now, I did have a few ideas as to what this website's house style should be when referring to them, but according to the editor, none of them are allowable on a family website, with the exception of one of my suggestions, which he claimed was both in poor taste and potentially libellous. So, henceforth, the deluded club from Haringey will be known in this column simply as Tottenham, on the grounds that it's exactly what their media people don't want. And if they don't like it, they can go to Florida and take a running jump in the Gulf of Percy. I said I'd come back to last week's car crasher interview with the Baroness, in which her commitment to, quote, affordable football, unquote, was restated. Really? a number of clubs have already announced their intention to freeze season ticket prices for next season. Having already announced that the club will be squeezing the pips out of the elderly and infirm, one wonders what they're going to do with the rest of us next term. The whole interview lurched from one disastrous comment to another. Amazingly, one suspects that the Baroness is likely to believe that the whole interview was a success, mainly because nobody's likely to have been brave enough to have told her otherwise. If nobody has the minerals to tell her that going to the media is a bad idea, and there have been plenty of examples of orally inserted metatarsals from the Baroness's column in that so-called newspaper aimed at people whose lips move when they read it, the very least that they should do is issue a list of phrases to be avoided at all cost. These should include affordable football and world-class when referring to the stadium. And why not simply address supporters' concerns rather than simply dismiss them as the rantings of people who don't like change? Maybe the owners would care to sell up to test that theory out. I'd be willing to bet a few of the 25,000 founder members season ticket holders no longer attending matches might think about coming back if that happened. Maybe that might be forced upon us. On the pitch, it was a highly amusing couple of hours at the Hemorrhoid Stadium last weekend. The walk back to the Tube was superb entertainment. The main complaint was that we'd parked the bus. Well, actually no, the bus had been parked out in the car park. What in fact we had done was set up a few rows of deck chairs, had waiters deliver a cocktail to each chair, sat back and completed the crossword whilst Arsenal played the ball from touchline to touchline and back again. Once in a while, presumably when somebody got stuck on a particularly cryptic clue, one of our players would look up, put the paper down and wander out to take the ball from an Arsenal player and set up a chance. There were fine performances all over the pitch, though I think I'd be a bit miffed if I were one of the outfield players ignored by Troy Deeney for his so-called Team of the Week on the BBC website. Areola was, somewhat laughably, given the goalkeeper slot. Now, don't get me wrong, he had a decent game, no doubt. However, it was a game in which he had a mere 2 saves to make, and one of those was driven straight at him. I suspect that Deeney hadn't watched the match and just assumed that it was like the Alamo in our penalty box for 90 minutes. Deeney's the sort of person we used to refer to as not exactly bursting with O-levels. Yeah, go ask your granddad on that one. And the suspicion that he's stealing a living as a pundit would seem to be borne out. Quick word about referee Craig Pawson, who had not a bad game, particularly when compared with some of the game changes we've had to endure of late. Now, I have seen some criticisms of Pawson's failure to deliver the red card to Lewis Skelly without intervention from VAR. However, I can see Pawson's original point. For denial of goal-scoring opportunity, or DOGSO as it's known in the trade, there is a mental checklist of 4 Ds that referees are supposed to consider. Distance to goal, distance to the ball, direction of play, and the number of covering defenders. 4 Ds. Now, on the face of it, the first one, the distance to goal, was quite a significant one. One assumes that Pawson's focus was fixed on the incident itself when it occurred. However, the distance to goal becomes less relevant if your goalkeeper has gone walkabout and is wandering around only a few yards inside his own half. A quick check on VAR gave Pawson that extra angle, and the deserved red card came out. The decision was a major surprise, well, because it was correct, something that will probably get Pawson suspended or something. Meanwhile, it just goes to show how much easier it is to beat Arsenal when they're without a fully fit Anthony Taylor on their side. For this weekend, on the injury front, whilst Antonio's still a long way off, I understand that he's back from his warm weather rehab spell and is likely to make an appearance at the ground on Thursday night. Let's hope he's getting a lift from someone. Fulkrug is still a while off, though his own rehab programme is progressing well. Soufal and Paquetá are both eyeing the Newcastle match for return to the squad, whilst Somerville is still looking to return in April. So the prediction then. Now I realise that consistency's been a problem of late, with a good away performance on the road often being followed up with a clunker at home. However, the more I look at this one, the more I can see 3 points coming our way. We murdered them at their place, with another shocker from the officials coupled with some poor finishing, papering over numerous cracks for the home side. I will be looking for more of the same, with hopefully a more appropriate result. So the £2.50 I was going to send to the Arsenal supporter with the mullet so he can go and get himself a better haircut will instead be going on a home win. Please, Mr. Winston, could I place the whole lot on a 3-1 win to us? Enjoy the game.